In this episode, I put an oil pan on an engine. Okay, but for real, this oil pan is for the Pinto, which means it needs to be a front sump. This engine was designed to be a rear sump for a Ranger, and so all of that kind of complicates things when you need to put a dipstick into there, when you need to have an oil pickup tube, and when you need to bolt the actual pan to the block. So I'm going to go over how I dealt with all of those things in this video, so stay tuned. Let's go. Alright, so one of the biggest hurdles in trying to get this 8-plug engine that's from a Ranger to work into the Pinto is the fact that the Ranger and everything used a rear sump setup, so the oil pan was, the hump was at the back, and which meant that the oil pickup tube ran to the back and the dipstick ran to the back and all that. So basically, I need to change that and to run it to the front. And so, some of the stuff I saw online said that the Ranger engines had two bosses for where the dipsticks could go, and basically it's just like a small freeze plug in there to knock it out. And my engine, however, does not have that, so I don't know if that's a difference in years or what the deal is, but mine doesn't. So, I had a couple options. First option is to locate the boss where the front sump oil dipstick would go and drill the hole through the engine block and put the dipstick in that way, and then plug up the rear sump dipstick hole. The second option is to try to come up with a way to connect the dipstick through the oil pan and run the dipstick just out the side of the oil pan, and that'll tell me the level that way. As well as plug the other hole from the old dipstick, but then I wouldn't have to worry about drilling through the engine block and making sure that my hole is straight and the right size and all that stuff. So let me just show you real quick what I'm talking about. Okay, so this is the engine. This is my dipstick that I pulled off, engine oil. So this crazy dipstick here, it has this bracket. This bracket bolted onto that bolt right there, and then a dipstick kind of ran something like this around the back of the oil filter and bolted onto that bracket right there, something like that. So the previous hole is right there. That's where the rear sump dipstick was, right there. And then at the front of the oil filter here, you can see there's this boss right there, and I've circled it right there with a Sharpie. That's where the boss went. So the engine that I pulled out of the Pinto, the dipstick came right from that spot right there. So I'm pretty sure that's where I would need to drill if I wanted to drill through the block. Then that puts the dipstick kind of coming right along the end of the pickup tube, and then would stick it out right next to the very bottom of the pickup tube, which is great. But like I said, I didn't really want to drill through that, so I did some research. And I came up with another solution, and this right here is an extra pan that I have. I have two oil pans. This one's a little bit better. I'm going to try to use this one probably. But this right here, this side, is this side of the engine. So what I saw online was that there was a Ford 7.3 liter diesel engines. They have the dipstick coming out of the pan, and I guess there's a common issue with them leaking there, and so there's some weld-on bungs and some bolt-on bungs or whatever that you can put through the side of the oil pan, stick a dipstick through. Something like that. So this right here is a Dorman part. I'll put the part number down in the description for this exact one. This was about $30. I didn't want to spend quite that much on it, but I think it should work pretty well. So basically how this works is there's two main pieces here. So there's this little O-ring right there that'll help seal it against the pan, and then this will go on the inside of the oil pan. This will seal on the outside. So basically my plan here is I'll drill a hole in the side of the oil pan and put this on the outside here, put this nut on the inside of the pan like this, squash that all together, and then my dipstick will go into this hole here. My main thing here is that I need to find what level to put this at. Right, so I need to be able to get this all the way through the pan at the right level to where the dipstick coming out doesn't hit the flange of the oil pan here, and I have enough room to get the dipstick through. Okay, so in order to do all of that, first I need to figure out what size hole I need to drill, and it looks like it's a little bit bigger than 1.5 inches, so probably 1 5/8 or maybe even 1 3/4 hole. But I need to find the best place along here to drill the hole, and I want the bottom of this to come out above the oil line still. That way the dipstick can stick out and I'll still have a little bit of space there. I know it's going to be short, but a little bit of space there before it actually contacts the oil level down there, so that way my dipstick actually kind of has some reading instead of the reading being inside of this hole and this constantly being halfway submerged. So to do that, I went over to my other oil pan that I have here. This is the one I was going to use on the engine before I realized that I have a better one at my parents' house. And I dumped in 5 quarts of old oil into there, made sure I had it level, and then took some spray paint. This is actually some primer, and sprayed along the top edge of the oil line. So you can see how far down it sits, and that's with 5 quarts of oil. So that's probably the most I'll ever run in this engine. I believe the recommended is 4.5 or 4, something along those lines. So I can basically find a spot there, measure down from the top there, and transfer that to the outside, and that'll tell me where to drill the hole. Alright, so I've been at it for a while now, cleaning this thing up with a wire brush. The inside was super filled with rust. Went around the outside, pretty good on it. Got some of the paint that was starting to flake off of there. And then right after I did that, I noticed that I have a little spot right there. So that little spot, you can see daylight through it. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and fix it, just because the flange on this one is so much nicer than that one. Even though this one was like filled with rust and this one was filled with oil, so it didn't rust. Blah 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 blah. I'm gonna use this one. So I'm gonna bang that flat and then throw it a little weld on there, and then we're gonna get to drilling the hole. So. Alright, so not perfect, but definitely better than before. Now that we got all that taken care of, let's see about drilling that hole. Boom, hole. I measured the threads on here, and they were like almost exactly 1 3/4. So I figured I'd go ahead and get an 1 3/4 hole saw. I kind of forgot how much they wander and jump around when you try to cut sheet metal with it. So I should have really just gone with a 1.5 hole, and then like used my file to enlarge the hole a little bit bigger, just so it was a little bit tighter of a fit. But where I'm at right now, the O-ring is still all the way sealed around on the surface. So I think it'll be all right. I don't think it'll be too much of a problem. And then I'm gonna pop this onto the engine and kind of make sure my hole lines up right where I wanted it to be, and then slap some paint on this bad boy, clean her up some more obviously, and then slap some paint on it, and then put the gasket on and bolt it on for good. Super excited. Alright, so I'm kind of holding the pan up here and trying to show you here. So this is about where it's going to be right there. So you can see there's the nub on the oil pump, and there's my clearance going in. You can see the oil pickup on there, really close to the bottom, which is perfect. That's exactly where I want it to be. So yeah, that spot should work out really well for the dipstick. I noticed another problem here just a second ago. This bolt right here that's extra long, that is where the stock pickup tube ran when this was a Ranger engine. So the stock pickup tube had a little brace right there, bolted onto that, and all I did was take it off of there, and then I put the nut back on. Doesn't really need the nut on there, but I put it back on there and then tighten it up. So what I think I'm gonna have to do is take the nut back off and then chop the stud off, because as you can see right here, it is hitting the pan right there, so I can't get the pan all the way sucked up to the bottom of the engine block. So I'm gonna have to cut that off, and then we can get the pan installed. Alright, so I got some stuff mocked up here. I've been playing around with my dipstick. Alright, so I got some stuff mocked up here. I got the pan loosely put on there after I threw some paint on there. Got the dipstick bung, whatever you want to call that, mount bolted in there, somewhat snug. I'm going to have to figure out how to tighten that, because I don't have a socket or a crescent wrench or anything that'll go that big. I took this dipstick and was using some pliers, some like brake line pliers, to try to get it to be straighter. And as you can see, that hasn't been working super great. And so then I just threw the old dipstick on here just for shits and giggles, and it actually looks like it's going to work out really well. So I put this down here at kind of a little bit of an angle so that it kind of kicks it back a little bit and then comes up. So what I think I'll do is cut off this bracket right here and make another bracket off of one of these holes there. I believe right around here is where the power steering pump ran on the Ranger. So I'm probably not going to run that on this car, I don't think. So I can just leave that off there. If I do decide I want to run power steering or whatever later, then I can reroute this or figure something else out there. Worry about it then. But as of now, my plan is not to run any power steering pump. And so anyway, now that that's all like kind of figured out, what I'm gonna do is probably go ahead and bolt the pan on, put the gasket on, bolt the pan on, because I can. Make sure I can get that bung there all snug down, and then we should be good to go. Okay, so real quick, like I said, I was trying to figure out how to tighten this bolt down. I just went ahead and made me a wrench. Okay, but like, check it out. It actually fits on there pretty darn well. Like, if I do say so myself. I can snug this down with this, and then we should be good to go. Hell yeah. Yeah. Okay guys, it is a new beautiful day, and we're back to working on this. So last thing you saw was me getting super frustrated trying to put the oil pan on with the 4-piece cork and rubber gasket, and I just could not get it to work. I don't know if there's something slightly different that I don't know of, or I just don't know how to do it, or what the deal is, but I was having so much trouble fighting it, and so finally I decided to go a different route. And so I took the pan, got all the silicone off that I had just put on, and to try to get that on. So I got all that off. I'm just going to probably leave that there, but whatever. And I got this gasket instead. So this is a Felpro gasket that is meant for I believe it's for a Mustang, and that's what I looked up for. It's like a 90 Mustang. But it's a one-piece rubber gasket. The corners there are very similar to the rubber pieces that I had there, other than they have these little nubs here to kind of keep it on the engine, on the block. So I'm going to try this. I've mocked it up a few times on the engine right here, and it looks way better than the 4-piece arrangement. And so I'm going to try that. I'm going to clean off some of the silicone that I have on here on the corners, reapply the silicone, and then we'll see about getting that thing finally installed. So, wish me luck. And there we go. We finally got the pan on there. I think this gasket's gonna work out great. You can see there around the main caps there. It's nice and sealed all the way around. The gasket's got a nice rib around there to keep it in place the whole time. All the bolt holes lined up pretty well. I did actually lose 2 of the bolts, so I had to use 2 of the ones. These are all the other bolts that came out of the actual engine that was in the Pinto to begin with. And so these 2, for some reason I lost 2. So those 2, that one, are from the Ranger pan. That one right there. So they're a little different. They're 8 mils instead of 10 millimeters, but whatever, it'll be fine. It works. So I silicone the corners there like you saw, and then put the pan on, and I cannot tell you how excited I am to have the pan on there finally. Been too much stupid freaking headache just to try to get this stupid pan onto this engine, and with a dipstick, and anyway, so it's finally done. And with that, I'm gonna call it on this one. This episode's taken quite a while to film, like I said, mostly because of the fact that I've been trying to figure out what to do for this, try to get the right gasket, how to do the dipstick, all that stuff. So I've been stressing over it way more than I should have probably, and so that's gonna be it for this one. Thank you guys for watching. Sorry if this is a little bit scatterbrained, but I will see you in the next one. Peace out. Is he? Is he? How excited? Yeah? You excited? Brownie, are you excited? Yeah? 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 Oh, good girl. Oh, good girl. Good puppy. Ah! Ah! Attack my puppies. Good girl.